welcome back to Sow, Grow and Cook. Today I'm going to show you how to turn these tomatoes into a nice basic tomato sauce that you can use for all sorts of things. Spaghetti sauces, pizza sauces, curry bases, what have you. So I'm not going to give you an exact recipe, but I'm going to give you more of the technique that I use in order to make it, and we're going to be using the water bath canning method. Now there's one step that I'm going to omit, and that is peeling the tomatoes. I think if you can leave the peel on, it adds additional color, flavor, it all gets blitzed down and cooked and you don't even notice the skins are there. But we do remove some of the seeds. So let's get started. Okay, so I've washed all these tomatoes, and what I'm doing is I'm cutting them in half and then again in quarters. And any sort of little stem areas, I'm going to cut those out and put in a bowl. And I'm going to squeeze out quite a bit of the seeds and pop the tomato quarters into a stock pot. But as you can see, I'm leaving the skins on. Right, this is going to take a while, so I'll bring you back once I've done all this cutting, de-seeding and chopping. Right, I've now chopped and de-seeded all those tomatoes, and this is what I've got here in the stock pan. Now, you can just scoop these out and put them in a food processor and blend them up, because that's what I would do normally. But I realize I've got a stick blender, and rather than dirty some more pans and things, I thought I'd keep it all in the pan that it's going to boil up in. So I'm going to make a noise now, and I'm going to just blitz this until it's pureed to the amount that I want it to go. Okay, I finished making a noise with the stick blender. That actually took over a minute and a half, because there's 7 kilos of chopped tomato in there. So I had to make sure that I got all the bits and chunks. And this is the consistency that we've got now. It's quite thick. It's not pureed really fine, and I'm not going to pass it through a strainer because I really like these chunks. And now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it on the stove top, and I'm going to start simmering it so that it reduces in volume by about a quarter. So let's move on to that next step. Okay, I've got the big stock pot full of tomatoes on the stove top. I've put it on a high heat just to get things heated up and bubbling away. Once it starts simmering, I'm going to turn it down to a low heat and stir it occasionally just to make sure that it's not sticking to the bottom of the pan. But I'm not adding anything else to the tomato puree. It's just tomatoes, no salt, no sugar, no herbs, nothing, because I want to add those when I actually make my recipes later on. I'm going to leave this simmering for about half an hour or so, and I'll come back when it's reduced by about a quarter. Okay, so I boiled up the tomato puree. It took a little bit longer than half an hour. In fact, it took about an hour, but it's at the right consistency for me. And what we're going to do now is we're going to fill up our jars in preparation for water bath canning. Now I'm using 500 ml jars, Kilner jars, with a 2-part lid. So we've got the rings and we've got the lids. And we'll just start filling those up with our funnel to catch everything, make sure it all goes down. We'll just do a couple of these. I've given everything a really good stir so that we get an even distribution of tomato. Go with about a couple of centimeters headroom before you put the lid on. Now I've got a damp kitchen towel here and I'm just going to wipe around the edge, but I'm also going to add a little bit of lemon juice, freshly squeezed lemon juice, to increase the acidity, as that's what's recommended. And just give it a little bit of a stir. Actually, I should have waited to wipe the rim, so now I'm going to wipe the rim. And I'm going to put the lid and the ring. Just turn it finger tight and set it to one side. And I'll do one more. I'm not going to do all of them in front of the camera because it'd get a bit boring. So let's just do a second one. These jars were washed in hot soapy water. They don't have to be sterilized at this stage because they're going to be sterilized in the water bath canning method. They are quite clean. And same goes with the lids and the rings. Okay, put that there. I'm going to add my 2 teaspoons of lemon juice, freshly squeezed lemon juice. If you don't have freshly squeezed lemon juice, you can use bottled lemon juice, or you can use white distilled vinegar as well. It's just to increase the acidity level, which makes sure that you're going to make it more shelf stable and it won't spoil. Right, let's wipe this down. Add the lid and the ring. And turn it till it's finger tight. And I'll come back when I've finished doing the rest of the jars. Okay, so I've finished filling up the jars. I had to go back to the shed to get a few more because it made more than I expected. I thought it was going to do about 8 jars, but in fact it did 11. So I guess I had a lot more tomatoes than I realized in that batch. So here they are. Now, I'm going to do the water bath canning method, and I'm going to have to come right back because I've got to wash the stock pot, which is where I'm going to be doing the water bath canning. So I'll be back when I've washed that out. Okay, I've washed the stock pot in preparation for doing the water bath canning. This is obviously not a pressure canner, it's just an ordinary stock pot. And water bath canning is different from pressure canning. It doesn't use quite the intensity of pressure and temperature that the pressure canner uses, but that's fine for a high acid product like tomato sauce. So what I've done now is I've got a tea cloth or a dishcloth, and I'm putting it in the base of the pan, and that's to help stop the jars from banging together when they're boiling in the pot. So now I'm going to put the jars in the pot. I'm not going to be able to put all 11 jars at once, so I'm probably going to have to do these in batches, but let's see how many will fit. I've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Right, and I've got some hot water, but not boiling. The jars are warm and the sauce is quite warm. So you don't want to have too big a temperature differential, otherwise you could crack the glass. So I'm going to pour this in. Basically, you want to cover the jars with water by about 3 or 4 centimeters. So I'm going to need some more water, which I'll get hot from the tap. I think we need another one. Maybe one more, just for good luck. Okay, the jars are now covered with water by about that much, and I'm going to put the lid on the pot. I'm going to turn on the gas flame and find the lid. There's the lid. There we go, there's the lid. This will help speed up the process. So, you want to let this boil now for 20 minutes. Get it on a high heat to begin with, and when it starts to bubble, just keep it on a sort of medium heat and let it keep bubbling away, and then we'll come back and see how it's got on. Okay, here we go. There's one. Is really handy. It just means that they pick up the jars ever so carefully without doing any damage to them, and your hands don't get burnt trying to lift them out. I'm setting these on a tea towel. We're just going to let them rest. Oh, that popping sound is, oh, that's just what we want to hear. That's the sound of lids vacuum sealing. That's good. That's a happy sound to home canners. I've got one more. Okay. Now I've got to put the other 4 jars in, and we'll come back when those have been water bath canned. I've taken all the jars out now, so both batches have been water bath canned for about 20 minutes each. The first batch, the seals, the lids have sealed. They've made a lovely popping sound, and they've kind of gone in on themselves, which is what they're supposed to do. These other ones are starting to seal as well. That one's sealed. Oh, that one, oh, I shouldn't have touched it, but yes, it's just sealed now. I don't recommend you forcing the seal down, but that one was clearly ready to go. And this one is still waiting. So I've made 11 this time. I made 10 the time before that, a few weeks back. I'm hoping to get about 30 jars in total. But I have a few left over from last year as well, and these will last throughout the winter for making all sorts of things. Spaghetti sauces, bases for stews and soups, and pizza sauces and bases for curries. So very, very useful. And again, if you don't grow your own, you can go to a farmer's market to buy tomatoes. It's the time of year where, you know, they are in season, and hopefully the cost will be a bit lower than they normally are. If you do grow your own and you don't have enough ripe ones to get on with it, you can always do the first couple of steps, which is chop them, de-seed them, and put them in a bag and put them in the freezer until you've got enough to sort of boil up a batch and make enough for sauce. So there you have it, a brief tutorial on how to water bath can tomatoes using the non-peel method and water bath canning as opposed to pressure canning. I hope you enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, don't forget to put them in the comment section below, or let me know how you got on with your own experience of canning tomatoes. And once again, thank you very much for watching So Grow and Cook. See you next time.